Okay, you guys. Canada versus the USA. This is always a big match. We know this. But honestly, after watching that contest, there are no tactical takeaways. There are no footballing conclusions to be drawn from this. It was a player safety issue, wasn't it?
I'm annoyed.
Yeah.
Like I'm just annoyed. Like what a wasted opportunity for it could have been
to show that they value the women's game.
It was the biggest fuck you to women's soccer. It was like, tell us how you really feel about the women's game. Oh, it's a freaking swimming pool. Yeah, who cares? Just get it over with. Like,
no, not a swimming pool, Claire. A cesspool.
A cesspool. Yes, whatever. It was
their pink cup runneth over.
It was an aggressive slip and slide, and I was annoyed, and I kept, like I said, I was kind of flipping I had the game playing on my phone by my computer, and I kept going back to it and watching. I was just like
CPR back,
making me more angry every time I went back. I was not a nice person last night, I don't think, but yeah.
Although those in the ER last night on the island.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the nurses to bear the brunt of my swearing, but yeah, it was just such a wasted opportunity of two teams that it could have been such a great matchup to really kind of gauge what both of these teams look like. There's questions about both of these teams coming out of the World Cup. And like, it's such a good opportunity. It would have been such a great opportunity to really kind of gauge where both of these teams are at. And instead we got that.
Yep. And then the responsibility, it was difficult to tell because you have somebody like Christina Unkel, who is the refereeing expert on CBS, talking about how the responsibility lies with the match commissioner, who is Monique Andre, and the match coordinator, Sharon O'Brien. But then you see the ref after about 2 minutes when this game's kicked off. And it should be said as well that apparently the conditions were playable or at least acceptable in warm-up. And then they went into the locker rooms 10, 15 minutes later, came back out, and the pitch was in the state that we saw when the game kicked off. The referee appears to go over to the sideline to consult, obviously looking at the state of affairs, saying this is unacceptable. I'm assuming, I'm projecting, but I'm guessing this is what's happening. And then is told to proceed, presumably. But like, as you said, I just think a real missed opportunity to say we care about these women. We care about them getting injured. We want to prevent them getting injured. And we also care about the women's game. And they didn't. And they had time, right? The final is on Saturday. Could we not have rescheduled this game?
Like, even if the match or the field looked good and like good, playable, and everyone agreed, and then you move forward very early in that game, it then became clear that they were wrong. So the conversations prior to kickoff were what they were. Like, I assume people did their due diligence. The field was looked at. I don't know. Maybe they thought it was going to drain faster. It didn't.
No.
Like the ref walking over with the ball and then dropping it in a puddle and sort of like, and everyone being like, what just happened? She was obviously not feeling empowered enough to call the game. So she went and showed the people that are meant to be the ones that call the game. Obviously nothing happened, or they didn't know that it was like, there is a communication, a process piece. And I think all that talk about the women's game and its priority and all these other pieces, like, this was a good tournament. There's some great stuff coming out of it. And then this, one of the top games, really everyone was tuning in to see how two teams that have really had to rebuild were gonna play. Like, what was it gonna look like? And it was embarrassing. It was dangerous, and it wasn't football. Like, these are two top countries that were like, you couldn't play on the ground.
It was a farce. It was ridiculous.
It was an absolute farce.
Yeah.
And I'm still annoyed. Yeah.
Yeah, really. It was a giant fuck you to women's football.
It was such a fuck you to women's. And it was just such a transparent indictment of how Concacaf really feels about women's soccer. You know what I mean? It's just when push comes to shove, oh, it's a swimming pool. Yeah, whatever. You know, just, it doesn't matter. Get it over with. They never do that for the men. It's just, oh.
Do you know what is the most frustrating to me? And I think you've hit it right. So the coaches, the players, the officials, everyone, it's almost like our whole history on the women's game is to grin and bear it. We've done that. And Amy just mentioned you had to retire because you chose to have a family. The same, like Claire's had to make decisions with her career. It's almost lauded on the women's side. Like, look how they just got on with things. And it's true, because that is how the game has had to be on the women's side. Like, this field is too small. The net has a giant hole in it. The fans are on the field. All these things that you would never see on the men's side that you've just had to learn to accept on the women's side. We've all experienced it. We've all seen it. And it happened again. Like, I am like weirdly kind of proud of the Canadians. You didn't really see many people losing it. You saw a few Americans starting, like Lindsay Horan started to get really worked up. And it's true. It was so frustrating. And then it's also something that I feel like I've been taught to celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at that
ability to just get on with it.
Just get on. And you almost feel like Jessie Fleming and Lindsay Horan should have just been like, we're not playing on this. Mm-hmm. And then they would have gotten stick for like, these women professionals, like, like they would.
But you hit on it, Rhian. The onus should not be on the players.
No.
Right? And then I heard people saying like Twyla Kilgore and Bev Priestman should have just shaken hands and said, we're not going to do this. But doesn't fall to them. It should be these match officials. It should be the referees. It should be Concacaf who's stepping in to say, even though this ball is rolling, we can stop this. It's within our power to say, even though that whistle is gone, we are stopping this because it's unsafe. Did you guys think that was a penalty?
100%.
Yeah, so did I.
On her foot.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's so weird. Did you see the Mexican red card?
No. I didn't.
Yeah, they went down to 10 men early. This poor center back had like a shocker. She it hit her on a cross, and then she lost the ball. So she starts spinning, and it fell right to a Brazilian in the box for the first goal. And it was the same defender who was like, from my angle, it was so close to just getting the ball. It was not a great tackle, but they ended up calling it a red card for them. And to see that call and then to see this non-call, you're like, oh man.
Yeah, and there was one on Deanne Rose as well, and in the first half that I think should have been
100%.
They at least checked by VAR. So I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. There were issues with the mic or the communication, and there was another time where the main referee, the main official, went over to the sideline, and I think that communication maybe had broken down. I don't know, giving them the benefit of the doubt here, but like just strange things that should have been reviewed and were not.
Because Deanne Rose does not go down. I hate diving. I hate it. It is such an ugly part of our game. I hate it. But women are going to have to learn to do it if that stuff doesn't get reviewed.
Deanne, you're a dive, though. You're not asking for a dive. You're asking for.
Well, it's clearly a dive, Claire, because she hasn't had to go down. But it will be her having to hit the ground to show that someone who's moving a million miles an hour, who has her foot clipped, that is a penalty. Mm-hmm. And if it would happen to other people, it's so weird. It happens to Deanne all the time because some part of her refuses to allow her to quit on a ball.
It's a kind of a Canadian thing. Do you guys remember when Evan Pellerud first came into the program and he was like, what is with you guys? Can you please be more cynical? Please, I'm not asking you to be theatrical, but if you are bumped, if you feel contact, go down, please, for the love of God.
All Amy, because we're all theatrical. None of us. So you'd be getting fouled, and then you'd try and like show you were getting fouled, and no one would call it because it looks so ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, we needed like acting classes or something. But did you guys feel? We'll end with this. Watching that game, I like ran the gamut of emotions. Claire, you talked about how frustrated you were feeling. I was like rage filled.
Yeah.
It was much more difficult to watch that game than I was trying to remember occasions where we played in similar conditions. There were many over the course of our careers. It was much easier, and we talked about the players getting on with it. I think it's much easier to be in the moment and just play and just get through it than having to watch. Do you agree?
I don't know. I mean,
Claire's always
that's happened in the past for us. The game, like I'm thinking of when we played the Americans in the Olympics in 2008. They called the game. We had a 2.5-hour rain delay in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
Because it was like lightning striking and golf ball size raindrops coming down, and they were like, "Ooh, yeah, this seems unsafe," and we all went inside.
Yeah.
Like that's what I kind of baffled me. I was just like, this isn't out of the realm of normal to be like, hey, this doesn't seem safe. Let's go inside for a bit and see what happens. So yeah, that's what I kept thinking of. I kept thinking of how the Americans in that game, right before they called it, Carly Lloyd had a free kick from somewhere around the halfway mark. I can't remember what it was. And it was one of those moments where like you knew the storm was right above you because the lightning and the thunder happened at the exact same time. And it was just like, boom. And I remember everybody just going like this, like just ducking. And that's when they called it. And I was like, I'm the tallest one out here. We need to get inside.
That's right. I'm the redhead. I'm getting fucking hit by lightning here.
I'm the one who's getting hit by lightning. If this is happening, we're going inside. So
in that game, Erin tore her ACL and
Yes.
Brittany had broke her ribs and one of them punctured
her lung.
Yes.
Yep.
So even that game was well handled, just to be clear.
Yeah, no, but I mean, yeah.
I would say that I think we work in the game and we're all taking an active role, the three of us, often on platforms to try and promote the women's game. So yeah, it should hit us harder now because that is what we're doing. The American fans will be outraged, but was it last FIFA window? I saw a game played in a foot of snow. You know?
Didn't that just happen?
No, in MLS, LA Galaxy against Real Salt Lake.
The men happened in the women's international as well, right?
Yeah, okay. I'm talking. Which qualification was that? I know what you're talking about.
I just think like it's almost not universal yet. This expectation of better, and that's the part that we've got to keep. Not just being outraged, just talk about it. And again, I think we need to come back to tangibles. I don't think the person in that stadium knew they were the one that was meant to call the game. Whomever that was. Who was it? We should all know. The team should know. Like this is the person that makes the decision. So let's actually. That's a question we need to keep people accountable to. But all too often in the women's game, we're like, oh my gosh, we played in a lightning storm.
Yeah. I know, like it's a badge of honor, right? Where you shouldn't be putting yourself out there in that way.
Yeah.
Aren't we past that? Like we're not. It's worse. It got worse.
No, I know. It's crazy to me that it's still happening.
No,
we had to watch that.
It's like surgeons, the old guy surgeons trying to tell people like, well, but residents have it so easy today. Back in my day, you stayed awake for 72 hours and crashed your car on the way home. And I'm like, that's not something to be proud of. But that's like how I feel about how when we played, we're like, oh yeah, we wore like men's clothing and, almost got hit by lightning. And it's like, oh, actually, not cool.
Do you remember when Amy had a blood clot in her leg and we were just putting indentations in it? We're like, no.
Because that was Pan Am Games.
Oh my God!
In Rio,
putting food in the indentations we were able to create in her swelling.
I had really bad edema because my leg was so swollen, and I just thought I tore my calf. And then we went for an ultrasound. They're like, "Oh, this is a fairly sizable blood clot in your calf." And I remember Andrea Neal being quite concerned about me flying home.
No kidding.
You might die. I'll be fine. Let's put this raisin in this pockmark in my shin.
Honestly, like that's the stuff. Our game. I don't know if you remember that, Penams. We were all out of it. We were so overtrained. We were
13 players that were actually fit and healthy. Like 2 players off the bench one game.
Were you one of them
Brazil at the Americana? No, I was up I couldn't do anything.
I'm surprised they didn't give you some minutes. I mean, we had a game that we were playing a game where we would whip each other with a Twizzler. Like we were.
I started that.
No, for sure you did.
Yes.
And people kept hitting me with Twizzlers, like to leave welts. What were we doing? And what was wrong?
We had to pass the time. I also forcibly made you guys watch Godfather Part 1 and Godfather Part 2.
Well, I just don't
getting whipped with a Twizzler. That game sounds like it was captained by Amy Walsh.
Of course, right?
Amy has my bio. Time wasters, most violent. Yeah,
you were thankful for it. Come on.
The welts. I think I'm scarred actually.
It's pronounced Wales, Rhian.
Oh, and she ties it up with a bow.
Don't encourage me.
Okay, we will end it there. Really good to chat with you guys again. I missed you. It feels like we haven't done this in a while. Rhian, again, we're proud as punch. We're chuffed for you. Well done. Can't wait to watch you bring this team to new heights. Clare, keep doctoring, keep crushing it. FuboTV.com/Footy Prime. Subscribe. Podcast gets kickback for all your Premier League, One Soccer, any W Gold Cup games that you want to cash. The final on Saturday, you can see it on there. TonyBet.ca for any wagering on Twizzlers fights and welts and how sizable they might be. And keep broadening your horizons and keep supporting independent podcasts. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.